Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Event Creators Share Their Tips on Experiential Marketing. My name is Brooke Gracie. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Cvent and so excited to be the moderator of today's discussion. Before we get started, I do want to go over just a few housekeeping items right off the top here. On the right side of your screen, you can join the chat. We love hearing what you have to say. You can also submit questions. We're going to leave plenty of time at the end for Q&A. And what's awesome about this is you can even upvote questions. So if you see somebody has asked a question that's also on your mind, hit upvote and we're going to address those questions first. Also, if you want to download our Mastering AI for Events handbook or our Dialing Up Your Event Engagement ebook, you can click the resources on the right. And with that, I want to introduce today's panelists who are going to be sharing their valuable insights with us. First, we have Adriana White. She's currently the event manager at Adweek, leading many events, one of which is Brand Week. Hello, Audie.
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you.
Yeah, so excited to have you here. We're also joined by Alexia Sahito. She is from sponsorship and events at Cognizant. Hello, Alexia.
Hey, Brooke. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we have an awesome crew today. I'm so excited to have this conversation. I just want to start off with kind of a level set question, just so we can kind of all be on the same page. Because when I think about experiential events, I start to wonder, what does that even mean? What does experiential mean to both of you? Alexia, I would love to hear your thoughts first. What it is you think about when you think of experiential events?
I mean, I think it's really all about creating those money can't buy once in a lifetime moments for your attendees. So for example, it's doing a hot lap in an F1 car or playing in a pro-am golf tournament with one of your favorite professional golfers. These are really the things that leave a lasting impact and attendees won't ever forget. And then of course, with these events, the ultimate goal is for attendees to experience your brand and your organization's capabilities just in subtle ways throughout the event, maybe without even realizing. We're able to do this a ton through our corporate sponsorships, which I'll be talking about.
That's awesome. It's so funny because my mom's here visiting and I was like, I'm doing this webinar on experiential events. She's like, what is that?
Yeah.
And I used your golf example. I was like, it's like this, Mom. You know, it's like creating this really cool experience that you normally might not have, and then bringing that brand into it too. Audie, I'd love to hear your take on this too. What does experiential events mean to you?
Yeah, I think that experiential events mean also just not like experiencing something that you can't necessarily experience on your own. And that can be, experiences can of course be through any kind of sense, right? So it could be through food. A really great experience that I can, bring up right now is last month, I actually hosted an event in Chicago. It was a conference in which I will speak about a little bit more down the line, but a part of that conference towards the end of it, we hosted an excursion in the evening, which was, we named it Feast Like a Bear. Because we were in Chicago, we wanted to pay homage to the city. So we brought all of our attendees to a restaurant where we were able to feature a bunch of different chefs that were featured and a part of the show The Bear in season 2. Because one of the main characters in the show for season 2, she went on to do a food tasting tour to get inspiration as they were building out a restaurant. And we thought it would be really nice for our attendees to be able to interact with these chefs, taste some of the food that was featured on the show. It was, again, one of those experiences that you wouldn't necessarily get on your own. So that was something that was really fun. I think another great example to mention for us would be our at our social media week event that we had in April. We had Dude with Sign, and that one is another really fun experience. One of our partners brought this in, and I know if you're in the city, in the streets of New York, sometimes you might see Dude with Sign, but you might be afraid to take a picture with him. So it was really nice to be able to have that interaction for our attendees. Again, an experience that is really cool, something that they might not be able to get for themselves.
Oh my gosh, I love this. Love Chicago. Love the food in Chicago. What a cool way to kind of take the inspiration from the city itself too and do a cool event like that. I love hearing these examples. I love hearing what you guys have done. In fact, I'd love to I'd love you guys to tell me a little bit more about that, where you've maybe pushed the boundaries and gone out of what you would typically expect, some of those experiences with unique elements. Audie, do you have any other examples that you could maybe share with us?
Yeah, so staying on the topic of the Marketing Vanguard Summit, I led that out in last month, and again, we took over the University of Chicago Chicago Booth School of Business. It's always a mouthful. We took this school over, the lecture hall over, and we held an event that I would really say was really an attendee-led experience. We did have formal programming in which something that was cool and unique was sending out pre-work prior to the event so that attendees really knew what we were going to be discussing, as well as just reading up on material so that they can also contribute. This event was really comprised of all CMOs and rising stars. And there was a lot of on and off the record conversations that we held in this room, on the record obviously being recorded, but also off the record with you being able to speak, authentically and very raw with your peers on various topics. This was something that was, very, very well received. All of our attendees really did enjoy themselves. And again, making it really like an opportunity for people to be able to, speak who are in the audience, but also on the stage was a really nice experience for us. Another really great example where I think that we really did unique work is our Sports Marketing Summit. So for this one, we leaned into the theme, of course. We held the event in a sports related venue, and we had our main stage on the basketball court, which was, of course, really fun because it was, yes, a corporate event. However, it didn't really feel corporate because you are on a basketball court, you're wearing sneakers, and it was really, really fun for our attendees. We had a hype team that came and really just gave to that sports environment, as well as during our reception, we ended up having a game of knockout, and that was hosted by WNBA player Aaliyah Edwards. And that was super fun and unique for our brand. This was another inaugural event that we did this year, but also it was a great experience for our attendees because they were able to take photos with her, as you can see in these images as well. She was, throwing out t-shirts and, joining in the game of knockout. So again, that really nice one-on-one experience that I think is really unique for our attendees.
Oh my gosh. I was so excited to see the WNBA represented here. It is so on trend. Everybody is talking about it these days, even due to a sign, right? Very relevant and on trend, and what a cool way to bring audience together and have this event in a kind of different way. Alexia, I would love to hear some examples from you as well. Any cool, fun things you've done recently you want to share?
Sure. And you know what? Why not stick with the sports theme, specifically women in sports? One of my favorite events that I've ever been a part of is our title sponsorship with the LPGA, and that's the Cognizant Founders Cup. So by investing in this sponsorship, we not only obviously increased our brand awareness, we were also able to host hundreds and hundreds of clients and associates throughout the tournament week. And that's in different areas, whether it be hanging out in our private suite, which you see here on 18 green, right in front of the players, or playing yourself in a pro-am with the professional players, or walking inside the ropes with one of your favorite players. There's so many opportunities with these sponsorships. With events like this, you're of course entertaining your clients, but you're also able to showcase your brand and your organization's core values. With this specific sponsorship, it was inclusion, of course. And we also were able to host a STEM activity on site where kids were able to learn how to code mini robotic golf balls. So the kids, who were mostly girls, were exposed to technology in a fun way. And then they also got to see professional golfers compete. And it really was rewarding because it opened their eyes to two potential career paths maybe down the road, or futures, technology and golf. Both of those have been mostly male dominated. It's just been one of the most rewarding events I've been a part of. And it definitely, I think, pushes the boundaries by elevating this LPGA Women in Sports event to become an experience on par with some other PGA Tour events. So it's been really cool. I love it.
I love that. Yeah, so good. I love this conversation. I love that we have a panel of all women here, and we're talking about events where we're really highlighting the awesome things that women do. Every time I think about some of these really cool experiences you guys are putting on, the first thing that comes to my mind is there's no playbook for this, right? You guys are figuring out on your own how to do these things. Often these events have never been done before, and I have to imagine that there are some common mistakes that you and every event organizer makes when trying to create this experiential, immersive experience. I would love if you guys could share with me in the audience just some tips on how you avoid some of those common mistakes. And Alexia, I would love to start with you.
Sure. I mean, I'll start with the pre-planning phase of any event. So one of the most important elements for us always comes in the pre-planning stage, and that's figuring out ways to incorporate a business aspect into each experience, really, without it seeming forced or like it's been an afterthought. A lot of these experiential events, we're talking about sports a lot, they come with a high price tag. And most organizations, including ours, have super strict ethics and compliance guidelines in place. For example, a lot of our clients can't accept an invite to, say, a football game or something like that. And we can't offer it unless there's a specific business element tied in. So it's also important for us to be able to provide like a dedicated time for our clients and our sales team to actually talk shop rather than just gifting them with a ticket to something. So recent example, we hosted over 35 executive clients at the India-Pakistan World Cup cricket match, which, if anyone's familiar with this, in the US, it's in some ways bigger than the Super Bowl. It was a really hot ticket. So to start off, we had all of the clients and all of our associates in our New York City office for a networking breakfast with solution demos from our associates. And it was just a time for them to connect on the business side of things. And then as planners, it's actually worked really well. It worked to our advantage, being able to kind of corral everyone into one space and then shuttle them all over together. This match, like I said, was huge. There was tens of thousands of people there. So it would have been kind of challenging if we didn't host this business breakfast beforehand. So that really worked out for us.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I can imagine if you show up to a cricket match like that, and I know that event is huge, you're never going to find each other once you get there. So like getting them together ahead of time and all kind of coming together, that's such a great idea. It's all those logistics that you guys have to think of. It's so amazing. Adi, what about you? Any hot tips or tricks for our audience on, just not making some of those mistakes that you've made in this past, maybe?
Yeah, I think a couple of things for me. I would honestly say, first, always go in when you're selecting your venue, considering all elements of the event. I think that sometimes people will find themselves, choosing a venue solely based on budget, but not being able to accommodate for every element that there is. So if there's, for example, a podcast studio that you need, make sure that there are dedicated areas where you can host a podcast in a quiet area. If there's workshops, make sure all of the workshops are able to, the venue can accommodate all workshops that you're having, because the last thing you want to have is for attendees to not be able to, attend something because there's no more room in the space. A good problem to have, of course, on the company side, because workshops are sold out and your partners who may be sponsoring the workshop is super excited about that. But from an attendee perspective, they aren't able to partake in that experience because there isn't enough space. So really being able to figure out that venue that's going to be the best fit for whichever event you're planning is a great tip that I would have. Something else would be really to never be afraid to push back. I think that if you are in like that planning process and you're seeing things that might not work out logistically, it truly is up to you to be that person to use your voice and use your expertise and speak up to what kind of flags you might be seeing, and raise those concerns. I would say another tip too would be to find the right partners for any event. And in this, like, you know, of course you have partners for sponsorship, but then you also have just partners on the vendor side as well. So in this instance, I'm really referring to like the vendors. You know, I think that a lot of times we will pick vendors that are budget friendly, whatever our budget may be, but sometimes that vendor might be someone who halfway delivers. And then that becomes a problem and it affects the success of your event. So just really being like, if for some reason you're like, we really need this element for our event, maybe talk with internal stakeholders, your sales team, and see if there's any opportunities for things to be, you know, a part of a sponsorship or sellable. Those are some great examples. And I would say, I guess the last one too, a lot of companies, you know, some companies will do internal kickoffs and just kind of like discuss the event, but not all do. Some just will kind of like go from one event and just say, oh, it's time to go. And like, let's start planning the next one. And it's just like side conversations that are happening. Again, convene everyone, talk about the event, talk about the goals of the event so that you are able to, you know, discuss budgets and any other logistics that you need to be able to do your job well.
Yeah, amazing. I really enjoyed how upfront, or, you know, in your response here, you mentioned both your vendors and your venue being super important to lock down. You know, of course at Cvent, we have the vendor marketplace, you know, where you can go and you can find the right vendor that's going to have those kind of perfect elements that you need, but also the venue too, you know, with the Cvent supplier network. My dogs are playing in the background. Sorry, guys. But the venue, you know, search the Cvent supplier network. And what I think is really cool about that tool too is that, you know, I've been talking with the product team and they're starting to add in more AI capabilities too, and leveraging technology like that to help you guys find the right venue on really specific criteria, because that's what you're looking for with experiential events, right? Like, it's not just your regular old venue, it's very specific criteria, you know. And speaking of AI too, like, I've been talking to all kinds of planners and marketers all the time about how they're leveraging AI as a technology to help them at their events. I have to imagine when it comes to experiential events, there's a lot of ways that you can use this kind of tech to create those immersive experiences. Have you guys been using AI? And if so, how? And Alexia, I'd love to start with you.
Sure. And Brooke, you're right. You can't escape AI lately. It's everywhere. And what's really great about this is AI is Cognizant's wheelhouse. Is exactly what clients hire us for. So one example I can think of is most recently we partnered with a company called TrueSpec to help elevate their custom golf club fitting experience using Cognizant Neuro AI. We did this on site at the Cognizant Founders Cup, the tournament I was talking about before. And how this works is a player steps inside and the simulator captures around 10 of their swings. And then our AI software analyzes the data against historical simulator data from past fittings. And then based on their swing, the players recommended the best club head and shaft within minutes. They're also provided some fun facts like celebrities with similar swings. I got Katharine Hepburn. I didn't know she was a golfer. So it's just fun. And it'll even tell you similar pros with similar swings, I should say. And then it can recommend golf courses that's best suited for your swing. So obviously this was a great way to tie our organization's capabilities back to our golf sponsorships. It was a really fun and immersive activity on site that attendees didn't even realize was actually a live demo showcasing our capabilities. To me, that's the ultimate definition of an experiential event. So it was a huge hit for us.
Absolutely. I have to imagine if you're into golf at all, this was probably like the coolest thing you've ever done.
It was cool. It ended up being a cool hangout spot for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of tricked them into a demo there. They didn't even know it was happening. That's the best way to do it. I can't imagine.
Exactly.
Adi, I'd love to hear from you too. How are you using AI?
Yeah, so we're coming into the space of AI. We are using it in, we've used it in our custom events sometimes where we might have so one event that we had during a reception, we had a lighting sensor. And this was really fun for our attendees because they were able to put their palm up to, a sensor, and then the lights in the room, the bulbs, as you're seeing in the photo, they mimicked the beat of your heart. And that was something that was really fun for attendees, and just like a nice little added experience while, people were networking and, just enjoying your, food and beverage. Another space that we're looking into and very likely incorporating into an upcoming event would be RFID badges. So for this, we are finding that a lot of our, partners or even just, internal team members are wanting to see for this workshop, how many people are coming into this workshop, and how long are they staying? How long are they interacting with an activation? It's really helping, this technology will really be helping to track people, all of our attendees for our partners, to help with analysis as we are looking at, all of the experiences that we're planning during for our events. So those are a couple of areas that we are, tapping into AI, and definitely more to come in 2025 because our CEO has expressed great interest in moving into this space more.
Yeah, we got to get on board with this, right? Or we're going to be left behind. And you mentioned one thing, which I think is so important. I talked to a lot of planners about this as well, which is just even leveraging AI to help you with all of the data that you're getting out of your events, right? So you're tracking people, you're using RFID, but then analyzing those results. It's such a great tool to use for that as well. And yeah, what a hot topic. We're all talking about AI, but the other thing that we're all talking about is accessibility as well. Certainly another one of those super hot topics. And when I, think about, again, these very unique experiences, probably the accessibility element is also very unique. Lots of things to consider. Adi, how are you considering accessibility with regards to some of these events you're hosting?
Yeah, so a big part, of course, is our main stage programming. That is something where all of our attendees are a part of, and we want them to feel included. So we do that in ways of having screens in our programming rooms to display CART, which, if some people don't know what CART is, it is communication access real-time translation. So essentially just words across the screen for people to be able to read those. We also have interpreters that we'll have at our events for our attendees, signage to elevators. We are always also just really being considerate of the best layout for attendees who may need that extra attention to detail, as well as name badges. Something even as simple as that. Our attendees, some of them have service animals, and we want them to feel, really included in the events. So here you're seeing a photo of Winston from one of our attendees. This is a service dog that is a frequent attendee at our events. And Winston, we all know and love and look forward to him coming. And he's just as cute as a button. So we make sure that he feels included, and he will sit in our programs and just sometimes sit as you're seeing, or will lay down, take a nap. And we've seen him open doors. It's just so fun. So, making sure that our furry friends are a part of our experiences as well is important.
Oh my gosh, my heart is melting. Obviously, I'm a dog person. So this Winston with his own little badge. I mean, that just, oh my gosh, that's everything. I love that so much.
Yeah.
This is going to be hard to beat, right, Alexia?
I know, I don't even. I mean, as Audie was saying, like accessibility is always going to be on the back of your minds, and it has to be across so many different elements that go into planning an event, from layout to name badges. For us, an example that I could think of, it starts at the very beginning. So when we're doing a walkthrough at a golf course, for example, it's thinking where to position our private suite on course to ensure the easiest and most seamless entry and exit to the tournaments. When it comes to accessibility, I think it's all about incorporating it where you can in very subtle ways, as to not have it like stand out. So for example, using ramps instead of stairs for all attendees where possible, rather than having a mini elevator hidden somewhere that you have to ask for access. Those are little things that are really important and go a long way. And you also, it starts in your registration process, understanding the needs of the people that are going to be on site, making sure that you have that all set and ready to go in advance is incredibly important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Such good tips and tricks. I know that we're learning more every day about how we can leverage tech to help with accessibility and so on and so forth. You know, it's a really important conversation when we're talking about any event type. The other thing that comes to my mind when it comes to events, and this is sort of like the key thing, right, is the reason we do them is for that engagement. We're really trying to engage with our audiences, whoever they are. It's really the lifeblood of a successful event. And the way that you guys are approaching events, it is really engaging. But I have to imagine that you have some new approaches, maybe some tips and tricks you can share with our audience about how you're engaging your attendees in meaningful ways. And of course, we love a good story. So any success stories that you could share would be awesome as well. And Alexia, I'll start with you on this one.
Sure. I mean, a lot of our event activations are within a larger event or sponsorship. For example, we'll host 100 attendees at the President's Cup golf tournament later this year. That's tens of thousands of people will be there. We obviously don't want those attendees to get lost in the mix, and it's really important for us to find the simplest ways to communicate with them and for them to be able to reach out to us quickly and easily, and for us to be able to respond. So obviously we'll send know before you go emails out before the event outlining contact info and everything that we think logistically they'll need to know. But there's always going to be changes and updates you want to share on site. One of the tools that we use that was such an easy addition, but has made a huge impact is called Text Magic. We use Text Magic to send regular reminders of things like shuttle bus pickup times, other logistics. If there's a rain delay, we'll just send out a huge text blast to everyone. The coolest thing is the attendees are able to text back with any questions, and we'll always have someone stationed behind a computer and responding right away. The amount of people that have come up to us and said, "Oh my gosh, I thought I was talking to a robot. I didn't think you'd respond," is actually kind of comical, but it made a huge impact and it made our lives a lot easier. So I'd highly recommend that tool.
I mean, yeah, who doesn't have their phone in their hand, right? Especially
Exactly.
when you're traveling, when you're at events, like if you want to get a message to them, I mean, forget like sliding pieces of paper under the hotel room doors. Remember when we used to do that back in the day? Like just shoot them a text. I love that. That's so good. Audie, what about you? How are you engaging your attendees in meaningful ways?
Yeah, so of course we have our email marketing campaign. So leading up to events, we will get our attendees excited by sharing, new speakers that we're confirming and new topics that we'll have at any of our events. But also we do for our tent poles have mobile apps, and that's always a nice way for us to engage with our attendees to, again, give them a snapshot of the event, allow them to connect with attendees, and just get, generate excitement from that. For our more intimate events, we will have Facebook group. We'll utilize that as well as LinkedIn to just allow people to have a chance to connect prior to the event or even after the event to continue the conversations that are being held at events, as well as something new that we've really started to do is have group chats. So group chat is essentially, like 10 to 15 people where there might be a lead discussion, like a person who's guiding the discussion, if you will, and it's on a specific topic. And, we really target specific audience for whichever topic it is that we're having. And that really helps keep our attendees engaged, as well as just virtually. So we use so all of our events are hybrid. And I won't say all, but I would probably say about 90% of our events are virtual. And so what we like to do is on this platform, we will, speak out, have a dedicated staff person, speaking in the group, getting everyone excited, sharing any type of announcements that we might have, as well as asking if anyone has any questions. And if there are any questions, we want for our virtual audience to feel like they have a presence in the room. So we will, push any virtual questions that are online into the main room, and we'll have someone mention, we have a question coming in from Connecticut by this person, and just share out the question so that they can feel too that they are part of the room, and have their answers, to their questions as well. So those are just some ways that we are engaging and keeping our audiences engaged throughout our events.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you mentioned mobile apps. I mean, and not just because I've been talking to event professionals for over a decade about mobile apps, because it is such an important tool with engagement. But again, right, everybody has their phone in their hand. So why wouldn't you use something like a mobile app or the text messaging to create that engagement? And especially when you're talking about the virtual and hybrid events as well, I feel like that could be part of the accessibility conversation as well. People who maybe can't actually make it to the event really feel like they're part of it, which is so important, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you guys are telling me these examples, we're talking about Aaliyah Edwards, we're talking about super cool golf events, we're talking about Dude with Sign. It's like you guys are on the edge, what the trends are, you're consistently raising the bar every year and maintaining that creativity. I feel nervous for you. Like, how do you guys stay up to date? How do you know what is cool and what your audiences are going to like? Alexia, what's your trick? Please share with us.
Well, I'll be the first to say I'm not the coolest or trendiest person out there, but what I will say is, and Audie was talking about this before, I think the most important part of planning these events is making sure you're partnering with the right vendors and organizations that share your same goals and passions. Try new things so they don't get stale year after year. With sponsorships, it's hard because you're signing on for a multi-year sponsorship, and it's going to be a lot of repeat attendees. You don't want the experience to necessarily be repeat in every single capacity. So whether it be adding a VR experience on site one year that you didn't have last year, or even just simply doing a complete brand refresh on one of the interior spaces. Those are things that I think will go pretty far. But like I said, hands down, most important part for me is partnering with the right vendors.
Definitely. See, I take all of my inspiration from the Bravo Housewives. So, if they're doing it, I'm like, it must be cool.
It must be cool.
Right? If there's any other, Bravo people out here in the audience. But I love that. Audie, what about you? How do you stay in the know? How do you keep raising the bar every single time?
Yeah, I think raising the bar and just staying in the know, a big piece is just attending networking events, talking to your peers that are in the industry and seeing what they're doing. I think that, of course, we all are doing, we're all in the event industry. We all know the trends, and we all also know the trends that will and will not work for our respective companies. So it's like, even if you are doing the same things, you can do the same things slightly different and like within that's like brand friendly for you. So just really networking, that is a big thing for me. Attending Biz Bash events, any like if there's, you know, event planning organizations you can get a part of, become a part of, those things are really helpful. Something else would be to ask, like literally just talk to your internal team members and just like see like, what are you guys seeing? Who are partners that you guys have relationships with that, you know, we can incorporate in our events? A really nice example for us would be our recent social media week. We really just had conversation with our team to see who knew who. So we just through that conversation, we were able to have the Shade Room come, and we also had a relationship with Ice Cream Social, and people were able to try like not so fried, I think it was called not so fried chicken ice cream or something. Basically it was fried chicken, like it was ice cream that was in the form of fried chicken. And that was like a really fun, you know, experience for our attendees. So just having conversations, networking, also attending conferences, and just studying what other people are doing. I know that I have done that in the past of just going our various companies. I guess it's really important to ask like maybe your HR team or like even your manager, but various companies will offer, you know, a little stipend for you to be able to attend another conference just so that you can see what other companies are doing and come back and report out like what they're doing and like what you think you all can benefit from your company as well. Those are all ways to stay fresh and relevant.
Definitely. First of all, sign me up for that chicken ice cream or whatever it is. Yeah, that sounds awesome. But I think you guys both made really good points, which is basically like find your people, you know, find your people out there that are, you know, doing similar things and, you know, gain inspiration from them. In fact, I know we're going to drop your guys' both of your LinkedIn into the chat as well. Like, why not follow Adi and Alexia, right? And see what they're doing. And just kind of find your own influencers, so to speak. Yeah, I love that. And Alexia, you had mentioned something earlier too. You had talked about VR briefly, and it really got my mind running because not many years ago, several years ago, I had led a VR project at Cvent. So at Cvent Connect, we did this really cool virtual reality experience. I was fully geeking out on the technology, and I was like, this is the coolest thing, right? But from my bosses, my leadership perspective, they're like, prove that this experience was worth the financial investment that we made. And because it's not like you're going to a session and you can say this many people showed up, you have to kind of think a little bit more broadly about what success means and what your ROI is. So how do you, and Adi, maybe I'll start with you here, how do you assess the success and the impact of some of these, you know, kind of out of the box events that you're organizing?
Yeah, I think, you know, a very important thing for us would be just post-event surveys, really asking, you know, targeted questions to your audience to, you know, find out what, like how they enjoyed experiences, what about your event they really appreciated, so that you're able to analyze those types of things. Another way to just really, you know, see if we've made an impact on our attendees is to simply take to social networks and just see like, what are they talking about on Facebook or Instagram? If there's any hashtags that might be trending from our events, LinkedIn, just like looking through LinkedIn and analyzing that to see what attendees have been saying. If you're a media outlet like ourselves, like just really checking to see, you know, what other outlets are picking up the events and the work that we're doing, to just see like, are we really, you know, impacting the communities that we are targeting, and just providing the attendee experience that we're hoping to be providing.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you mentioned RFID earlier too, and that kind of related back to me as well, because we were using RFID just to passively track who might be milling around the experience. You know, maybe they didn't go actually put on the VR goggles, but they were talking to our salespeople. They were, you know, getting the brand and all of that. So really, really interesting. Alexia, what about you? How are you proving impact?
I mean, being able to showcase ROI is really everything. To your point, Brooke, these events are not cheap at all. And you want to be able to quantify the data to have something to show, because you'll ultimately have to ask for funding again from your leadership, and you want to be able to show something, right? What we do is we partner with our MarTech team to analyze our event attendees lists against our pipeline, and that's how we determine ROI. I know all organizations have different methods of analyzing their ROI. I would just say make sure whatever model you establish for event ROI is adopted across your entire organization, so that you can easily compare events and event success. What Audie was kind of saying before, I think we all work for like really big organizations with large event planning teams oftentimes, and you kind of get stuck working in your own little silos. There's so much knowledge and talent within your own team you don't even realize, because you're so stuck on your own stuff. So making sure you establish something across your entire organization, like I said, so that you can compare events. And then where my team really comes into play, our most important role is to make sure that we're maintaining accurate records of our event attendance and our budgets. The tools we use are both Salesforce and Cvent for all that planning. And we most recently launched our Salesforce Cvent integration within the past year or two. That has helped tremendously with us automating all of this. And there's always, at the end of the day, going to be one source of truth for all of our event attendee records. It lives here, and we know where to access it. Anyone can access it at any time. That has been a game changer for us.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because you have your total event program, right? And you're often comparing different events, completely different experiences. So kind of having that consistent ROI definition is awesome. But having all of your events on the same platform like Cvent gets you all of that data in one place, so that it's super easy to do those comparisons and things like that, and then the integrations as well. So thank you so much for mentioning that. That's awesome. I was actually thinking, I was like, what is the coolest experience that I've seen recently? And the first thing that comes to mind for me is a couple weeks ago, I'm in San Antonio, right, for Cvent Connect. And my job at that event was to man the human claw machine. So we were literally strapping people into, the claw machine, right, where you go after stuffed animals, but we were strapping people into a thing, and they were going down and grabbing boxes with prizes. Of course, I had to try it too. I was like, "Want to strap me in?" Here we go. But the thing that kept coming to my mind was, what a wacky idea, right? How did we convince our stakeholders that it was a great idea to strap people in and have them be a human claw machine, even though it was wildly successful, right? And I have to imagine you guys face this a lot too, right? You're coming up with really cool, creative ideas, but you need to go back to your stakeholders, present that, and get their buy-in and get budget. So I'd love to hear about, what is your strategy for that? And Audie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great topic, because I think sometimes with new ideas or new venues that you're wanting to host an event in, companies can sometimes be hesitant. They can sometimes feel like, have that mindset of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Or we've had so much success in this venue, like, why do we need to change locations? But I think a big thing that I like to do is, whenever I'm coming, wanting to bring forth a new idea or a new venue, for example, I'm coming with statistics. I'm coming with case studies. I'm coming with just like proven research that, maybe this company, who could be a competitor or not a competitor, has hosted an event here and it worked really well for them. Or, we're seeing that our target audience is really occupying a certain market, a certain location that we may have not have hosted something. Like, even for us, we never hosted in Chicago before outside of this year. And that was something that was, we had to come correct. We had to come with, proven like success to really convince people that this could be a great, this could be a great opportunity for us to explore, or just, can open up doors. So that would be something for me, like statistics, case studies, really coming with the research. And of course, if it's, again, budget is always something that, companies like to lead with. So something that I would recommend for people would be, and some things that I've done, is looking at what the budgets have been from previous events, and, finding things that are within that same price point, so that it kind of helps with, someone being a little resistant to a new idea.
Yeah, a conversation always goes to budget, right? So you really have to be prepared for that. And I like what you said about leaning into the data. Our C-suites, our senior leadership team, they want to see the data, they want to see the numbers. So that's a really great piece of advice. Alexia, what about you? How are you convincing people to let you do some of these really cool experiences?
I mean, I'm going to stick to the operational side and the budget conversation. It keeps coming up. These events are so insanely expensive. You want to make sure, number one, that the right people are getting invited and attending. So how do you do that? The thing that I faced the most resistance with was, I think, trying to make changes to the attendee management process pre-event. So I can think back years and years, and I think a lot of planners face this similar challenge, and it's, how do you collect your invitation lists? I work for a humongous company. There are hundreds and thousands of sales team members that we want to be able to nominate people to attend these events. Well, collecting invitation lists in Excel is just not cutting it. We wanted to move this process online and use our CRM, Salesforce, with Cvent, and integrate all the systems, so that not only could we automate collecting the invitation lists, we could also establish, like I was saying before, one central source of truth for all attendee reporting across all events. And then by doing this in our CRM, collecting the invitation list, we can provide all kinds of analysis on our events and the specific attendees. And we can see, okay, we want to approve these top 10 attendees that are at this level for this specific event that costs us a ton of money, and this is our target audience. I can't imagine doing that in Excel. So pushing that process to Salesforce, of course, took a ton of time. The only thing I can suggest with any of these changes, you just need patience, of course, and then make sure you're super clear and concise in your trainings and the resources you provide, like the user guides and everything, to your sales team. This is what we're doing now. Test it out a ton with small groups of people that are interested in change and working with you. And then when you launch it, just be prepared. There's going to be a ton of resistance and maybe complaining and all that, but just keep your final goal in mind while you're pushing for all of this change.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned the audience too, right? Because if we're going to get the budget approved, you best believe you need to have the right people that are going to be there, right? And using the data to help you make that decision. It's such a smart way to do that. Thank you for that advice. And I'm glad that you talked about budget too, because I see questions, a lot of questions coming through the Q&A, which we're going to get to in just a second. And one of them's on budget. So we'll get to that in just a minute. Before we do, I'd like to let everybody know here that's listening that if you'd like to earn a $100 Amazon gift card, all you need to do is sign up to complete a demo with us here at Cvent. I'm going to pop the link to that in the chat. And if for some reason you are outside the US, never fear. The gift card can be converted from those US dollars to another currency available of your choosing. So please don't let that stop you from signing up for a demo with us. For those of you that need to get back to your emails and Slacks and everything and need to jump, thanks for attending. But I would recommend sticking around because we're going to go to a very lively Q&A. I have a ton of questions here for you guys. And the first one, Lexia, is along those lines of budget. Somebody's asking if you have any examples or ideas, and feel free, both of you, to jump in. Budget-friendly enhancements for simple networking sessions that are part of larger conferences and events. What are your budget-friendly ideas?
I mean, one thing that I can say that I'm guilty of course, and I'll go back to Cvent. we have this huge Cvent license, right? I'm super busy, my team's super busy. We don't always know what functionality is accessible to us. So I think that's a flaw of ours, that if we're looking into something like a networking event, enhancements that we can come up with, we forget about all of the technology that we already have contracted that we can just roll out. So I would say make sure that you spend time understanding all the tools that you currently have, just in terms of tech, and then looking into fun ways that you can maybe use one of the apps for this event and roll out some kind of networking pieces. Things like that can go a long way.
And to add on to that, I think having simple networking events, like they're simple. So like you can do this in ways of like light food and beverage, and just like finding a space within the venue to like host your event. So like for us, a lot of times we have like our larger space. We'll always have a dedicated area for a reception after each day of our event. And it's just light bites and like beer and wine to keep things simple for people. Something else that could be really inexpensive, but also encourage networking for the larger group or for a smaller subset would be like, we've done in the past, like games of bingo. And that's something where like, yes, you'll have to like, design the bingo card and then also like print, but that's the cost there. And then attendees will be able to, go around and play bingo and talk to one another. And then I would also say, there is a vendor that I am very familiar with that, depending on what your budget is, they have networking buttons, and the company is Jabberyak. And they have like networking buttons, and they could be like, you wear them, and it can be, you will give your top 7 hobbies that you like, and you can tailor this type of thing. So it's like top 7 hobbies. And as people are walking around, they can see that you have like hiking on there and like, performance venues, whatever. And that's really just like fun, thought starting conversations for people, especially for those who might not be as, extroverted as others like myself.
I think too, just one thing to add, I've seen before really simple things like putting your hobbies on like a coffee mug, or your whatever, something on a coffee mug that's like a conversation starter, or even just keeping in mind that a lot of people, to Audie's point, don't want to just walk into a room to network with a bunch of people that they don't know. So how do you break the ice without doing the awkward icebreakers?
Yeah, totally. We really have to get creative these days, right? I love the bingo idea. If you'd believe it, Audie, I actually have a history of being a bingo caller. My pseudo personality is named Debbie Daubers. You're welcome to use it. Call me anytime. One of the other questions here is about those sponsorship contracts that are multi-year deals, right? So we're working with the same sponsors every single year. What kind of advice do you guys have on keeping those experiential activations fresh and engaging year after year, and not just doing the same thing because you're working with the same partner?
That's I can answer that one. So we just wrapped up our 4th Cognizant Founders Cup, and that's 4 years in a row of being title sponsor, same golf course, same everything. You just have to think outside the box. So maybe instead of doing your custom build on 18 green, you change it up one year and you're on 1T or something like that. And you can host different ancillary programs throughout the tournament week, different than years past. Say one year you want to do a women in technology networking session for breakfast, and then another year you do a happy hour with a different group. And like I said, changing up the experiences. This year was the first year that we did that immersive golf simulator experience. Last year we did a VR experience. So there's always those little activities within the greater activation that you can focus on changing up and keeping things fresh. But the good thing about the sponsorships, I must say, is people look forward to it year after year. So year one, you're like really establishing yourself, and then you'll notice after year 2, 3, 4, I see the same faces coming back. They'll reach out to us proactively and say, hey, when does registration open for Cognizant Classic or whatever, because they already have it on their radar. They're looking forward to it. So keep that in mind as well. You don't have to change up everything because people loved it year one. They want to come back.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And can I add to that, Alexia? Something else that was coming to mind for me is making sure you are, like, each year the program will likely have a different theme. And so whatever that theme you're having, like, make sure that you're tying activations into the theme. And that's something, like, another very easy way to just have new ideas, like, year over year for your events.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, we have time for one more question. Before we do that, I want to let everybody know that even after this webinar is over, you can access the recording anytime. You can log into Cvent webinar just like you did today, and you'll see a watch recording button. Especially if you have team members or other people you think should listen to this content, feel free to send that along as well. You're going to receive a link to the recording in a follow-up email, and captions and everything will be on there for you. Okay, but before we go, the last question, my favorite question is, what is your favorite piece of technology that you use for experiential events?
I mean, you know that I'm going to say Cvent.
Yes, I love that.
I talked about it, I think, this entire hour, but by us connecting Cvent and Salesforce, everything's automated, and the sales team lives in the CRMs always, right? So if you want something to be your main source of truth, then collect your invitation list in Salesforce, then connect it to your Cvent event. The second a client registers for that specific event, they will show up in your CRM as event registered. They don't have to email you and ask what's the status. You just send them the link to the campaign members page, and it all lives there. And like I said, the amount of reporting that you can get just by having everything in one central location, specifically your CRM, that will just blow away everyone in your organization. It's been huge for us. I can't say enough about it.
Awesome. I mean, how can we not end on that note, right? Steven, yeah.
They didn't even ask me to say that. It's an honest answer.
You're awesome. And unfortunately, we are out of time. This was such a wonderful discussion. Thank you guys so much. Audie and Alexia, you have been amazing. And if you guys want to hear more from them, go ahead and follow them on LinkedIn, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brooke.